Before we to tell you a few important things, first of all, this webinar is completely recorded. This is for people review and archiving. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box on the right side of the screen or unmute yourself. And finally, this webinar concludes, the e-certificate of participation will be shared to you over this email ID. Just to confirm, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Swati.
Okay. All right. So these are the topics which will be covered in this session, and we'll begin with understanding what exactly science is and why is it referred to art. Then we will also talk how data science is related to other fields like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and others. Then we shall also spend some time to focus on how to approach a data science problem or a project. Also, how as a student you can avail Microsoft Azure Physics. Afterwards, we'll also show you how to use Azure Machine to predict bank's churn rate using a Kaggle dataset. So, all right, that's conclusion part. Jump into it. So I'm certain that you must have heard of data science at least once in a lifetime. At its core, data science is a field of study that aims to use scientific approach to extract meaning and insights from data. Now, there are many formal definitions, but at this stage, I would rather not involve you with all. So, data science art, it's certainly it data visualization and data storage. As a data science artist, you are able to understand the data, you are able to process it, extract values from it, visualize it, and communicate it. And that's essentially an art. So let us talk a bit about how data science is exactly related to other fields, namely artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on. So here I present a very basic Venn diagram that is from a medium article. It clearly explains the relationship between data science and other fields. Let's talk a bit about them. Although it is obviously practically impossible to cover all of them, let's quickly discuss what exactly those terms mean. First of all, is artificial intelligence. So it is basically the creation of software that imitates a human behavior and the appropriate capabilities. Next, we have machine. Now, machine learning is the creation of an artificial intelligence system, and it is the way we teach the computer model, to make predictions and draw conclusions from the data. The third is deep learning, and it is an artificially intelligent function that will use workings of the human brain in processing data for use in detecting objects, recognizing speech, translating languages, decisions. Now, there is here we will talk to how to approach towards the data science problem. So there is a framework known as OS10, which talks about formal approach, how you formally approach towards the data science. But the one I present here on the screen to you is more or less like that, but it has been tweaked as per my experience. Before all these parts, whatever has been presented to you, you actually have to understand the problem in hand. You need to get the requirements, go through them thoroughly. Then you move to the data sets, which has been marked in blue, as you see on the screen. You can either type your own data set or you can work on already existing one. Kaggle is a really tool to find a huge range of data can be used for a project work. I have taken one such data set from Kaggle, which we will discuss in just a couple of minutes now. Now, if you observe a data set that it may contain duplicate values, irrelevant values, which are of no use to us. So for that, we clean and pre-process our data, and that's where the clean and processing step comes into picture. In this step, essentially, we take all these ways to ensure the data is quickly clean and ready to be fed to the model. Afterwards, the next step is to divide the data set into training and test data. Thus, it means that basically some portion of the data is used for training. The model and test will be used for testing, where the model is, able to predict accurately. Also, there is hard rule dividing the data set, but dividing 8 to 7 is 3 ratio, meaning 70% data will be for training 30 will be for testing. It's a good start. Now you have to select a model and train it with data set you selected in previous step. So, the model prediction depend upon the problem you want to solve. For instance, if you have to predict continuous value such as price or then probably regression algorithms will be best suited. But on the other hand, predict and classify discrete values for you have to predict whether the person is male or female, or whether the email is spam or not spam, then classification algorithms are best suited. At this step, you decide. Then you may try to visualize your trade model, although this is not necessary step in the entire step, but you can visualize the model as well. So there are certain libraries which makes this job very easy. The one which I can remember is the Keras Web library. It's a very easy function to visualize. After that, you can find how accurate the trained model is. So you may use data to make predictions. You can also use new data set. The prediction accuracy used a certain highly reliable model has never seen this. Now it is making predictions. Also note that there is fixed accuracy needed in any model. Required accuracy depends on the problem domain. For example, if it will be used for some healthcare, like predicting if a person has diabetes or not, your model should be able to get higher accuracies, right? All right, so as your student, so if you are a student, you have a valid education email address for university, you can get almost $100 of Azure credits plus services free till you are a student. So when you sign up, you will get 100 credits in your Azure account, 12 months. That one. I will share the link after this event and what that. And I highly recommend create your account to check out stuff. You can just play around with Azure, features, which we have just this slide. So this is the link. I will share. So next, okay, let me walk you. Um, Now let me walk you through this problem that we are going to solve today, which is to predict the bank churn using Azure services and Python. So now, customers is basically the loss of clients or customers. Now, who would need the customer churn analysis? Well, there are instances with your banks, insurance company, then you have streaming companies, telecom service. They often use churn analysis as a key business metric. That's essentially because the cost of retaining existing customers is far less than acquiring new ones. So here in particular problem that I'm going to discuss in just a couple of minutes, the aim is to build a classifier which can exactly determine whether the bank customers will leave in the 6 months or not. I will walk you through the categories once we jump into the depth. All right, so finally we are here. It's demo time. So these are the links that we're using for my demo purposes. I have Azure link. This is the portal link where I go there. Then we have the data set. I've taken the data set from Kaggle. It's available to anyone who start to log in and can access this data set as well. Then there is a repository. So in case you are interested to, just put the same on it afterwards, you can use the repository, whatever I will be discussing. Everything it has, it's available on the repository. This is the Azure, and as I said, I was talking. This is the GitHub repository. So I'll quickly jump um, onto the Azure portal. Just give me a couple of minutes. I hope my screen is visible to everyone now. Um, okay,
Yes, it is
perfect.
visible.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it's visible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so this is the Azure portal which I was talking about. It's pretty simple. You just write portal.azure.com and you'll land here. You need to have a subscription before you begin anything because obviously it's a pay as you go model. So in order for you to use the services, you should have the subscription and you will be charged for whatever amount of resources you use. Okay. So here, if you see on my screen, there are certain resources already being created, but for you, if you're just beginning, you won't be able to see anything. It will be just, simply blank. But these Azure services will be visible to you. You can just play around as I was already talking about. You can just find there are like hundreds of services which will be, impossible to cover in a session. Anyways, so to begin and to stick to our agenda, I'll just go and create a new resource. It will be a machine learning resource. So Azure does provide, a separate working workstation, as you will see in a couple of minutes. It's pretty easy to use. All you have to do is you have to create that resource. So I will just type machine learning and it will find machine learning resource in the marketplace. So here it is. I'll just click on create. All right, so here we are. This is actually a bit important step. You'll know why. So here you have to, so this is a subscription, right? So for me, this is the name of the subscription. For you, it might be different as well, whatever subscription you choose. Then you have a resource group. Resource group is essentially just like the directory you create in your laptops or your computers, right? You have folders. Then, for example, you have your study material in one folder. You have other resources in one folder. So that way you can manage your resources within a group, within resource. Then for me, I have already created one. But if you would like to create new, you can click on the create new and create one. And then you can give the name to a workspace name. Now, workspace is basically the place where you will be running your Python scripts. So you can give a name. I have already created, so I won't give it any name. Then the region, like it should be Central India first. Then the rest of the things will be created automatically. So just let me show you how exactly it looks like. Yes, demo. Right. So until and unless you get this green tick, you won't be able to create the resource. So this naming convention is perfect as per the requirements. So I'm getting the green tick. And the other things have been taken care for you. You just then click on review and create text and things will be done. Now this entire process takes almost 10 to 12 minutes, sometimes it 8 minutes, but just for the sake of convenience, I have already created it and this is what it should look like once you have also created the resource. Um, let's All right, so this is what the resource will look like, data science workstation. So the workstation naming which I was talking about, the name I have given to my workstation is data science workstation. All right. So now, if you all again you see there are so many options available. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you certainly are free to just jiggle around and understand what exactly those things mean. But I'm here on the overview page, and here you see there is a resource group, right? The one I was talking about. So this is my resource group. This is my directory. This is my folder where my resource has been located. And location Central India subscription, and this is the ID. Now let's go to the studio. So this is the studio URL. So the same way we have portal.azure.com. Similarly, we have something called ml.azure.com. It's kind of a separate portal than this Azure portal. And let me launch that. So entire billing and resource related activity will be done on Azure portal, but for machine learning specifically, they have kind of separated and created a independent hub so that things are easier to manage because Azure just does not provide services related to a machine learning, but it also provides services like virtual machines, storages, and so many other things. All right, so here I am on my Microsoft Azure Machine Learning Portal, which is like a one-stop for all your machine learning requirements. You can, create your own models, or you can even automate your machine learning. So if you see on the left side of the screen, there are so many options. I'll just quickly go through randomly one by one. Data set, you can add a data set, which you can then use later on again and again whenever you would want to. Experiments is something a bit different. Then you have automated ML. So automated ML basically means it is a code-free way of creating models to make predictions or whatever the problem is. So you just drag and drop certain modules and the things will be done for you automatically, right? You just have to give the instruction. How exactly should your pipeline look like and so on. So it is automatically train and tune a model using a target metric. And there is a designer which will drag and drop the interface for prepping the data to deploy models. And so there also, I really appreciate the Azure documentation that is there. Like you can learn on your own as well. It's really simple to learn. We have a well documented all the activities. So let's just create a new file, a new notebook. All right, so here I am. I will just give it a name. My screen just froze. All right. So let me name it demo customer. The name of my Python notebook, which I'm creating. Let's create it. Okay, so success. Perfect. So if you see here, I have two other files as well. So just for a moment, just forget them because I have already created this entire thing set up for the demo purpose. When you will create these things, only this demo customer churn file will be there in your directory. Other two files you have to upload on your own. So this is the file I created just in case my demo crashes, to be on the safer side. And this CSV file is the data set which we are going to use. So how to upload the data set? You click on this add files icon and then you select upload files and you just upload the file. Simple, right? So this is my data set. If you want to get a look at it, let's just open the file. Otherwise, you will also. This is what my data set looks like. I think there are almost 10,000 entries in this data set. So relatively, this is a small data sample. In reality, you will have a huge data set. But anyways, for this demo, let's keep it simple. I'll just close this. So here I am on my notebook. So just to see whether everything is working or not, let's just, do some mathematical simple calculations. 7 plus 3. To see my notebook is actually working. So I'm getting 10. So it means it is working fine. Now, in case if you face some error, that could be probably because of the compute. So this is what compute means. Compute is basically allocation of CPU or GPU to your particular notebook which you are going to run. So why do you need a CPU or GPU? Well, you need to make some computations, right? You need to do some calculation, do some computation, do the processing. For that, you need to attach a compute, right? And how do you create it? For me, it has already been created. I did that. But you click on this new compute icon and the rest of the things you will, it as pretty straightforward. You will get it done. All right, and this entire process again takes almost 12 to 15 minutes. So I already created this for you. Okay, you can also stop the compute because your compute is also going to charge you at the end of the billing month. So take care of that. If you are not using any resource, it's better to stop the resource or delete the resource completely. Okay, that being said, let's get started with the um, analysis, the bank customer churn analysis. I will just import the necessary libraries. Pandas in NumPy, NumPy for mathematical manipulations, and pandas for other. Um, all right, so first, we will load the data set. This is my data set in my directory as I had. Okay. So this is the churn modeling .csv file, which I am talking about. I have this data set with me. Now, what have I done? Using the object of pandas, which is PD, I have called the function read underscore CSV, and in the argument, I have given the name of the file which I want to load. And where do I want to load? In this DF data frame object. So this is just a simple variable like we have, right? Now, if I want to print DF, I will get the entire data frame. You can see this is the file which I was talking about. You have row number, attribute, customer ID, surname. You have certain things, other related attributes. Let's see. All right, exited. So in this particular data set, we have exited attribute, which is essentially the one which we want to predict. What exited means that based on these values, based on row number one, customer ID, this, surname, this, the person with credit score 119, he has left, and other, informations as well. Okay. So we have essentially loaded our data set. Now let's see, just let's get a quick insight into our data first before making any model. We need to be able to understand if our data set has any null values or if our data set has anything wrong with it. So let's do the analysis of data first, then we will create the model. All right, so here what I have done is using the DF object, I am trying to find what is the data type of my attributes, right? We have so many attributes over here. We have almost 14 attributes. We have gender, age, tenure, balance, number of products. Let's just see the data type. All right, so here I have all the 14 attributes, which says that row number is an integer type, perfect. Surname is an object type. Now, object type is the type which will accept anything. It will accept string, float, integer, whatever it is. Then we again have object. And for balance, we have a float type. Balance is a float type of attribute. Now, one of the very important things which you should remember is that your model will work better and best, I would say, when the data is in integer type. Okay, so because you will see that later on that why it is so. Object type and float type will not work very well with your model. So as a first step in the pre-processing step, we would essentially convert all these objects into integer, and then we will proceed with the model creation. So um, also, if you see the data set, okay, let's just go back to the data set. All right. So in my analysis, do you think row number has anything to do with my predictions? No, I don't think. I mean, how does row number affect my prediction, right? So maybe the geography can affect. A person with a higher credit score might not leave the bank. That could be the case. We will understand that later on. But row number essentially has nothing to do with the person leaving or not. Okay. So what I will do, I will try to find such attributes in my data set, and I'll simply remove them, because I, as a data scientist, do not want to have a large data set. I just want to be, done with unnecessary attributes. I will remove this row number. It has nothing to do with my analysis. Now, can any one of you just guess what could be the other attributes which should be removed other than row number? Do you feel there is any other attribute? Anyone? Okay. All right, no problem. So other attributes which you should remove is customer. Sorry,
Balance. Can we remove the balance here?
not remove the balance, because balance will also be a factor to determine whether the person will leave or not.
Okay.
Any other?
So surname maybe?
Yeah, surname. Perfect, right. Correct. So surname has nothing to do with, a person with any surname can even leave, any surname can even stay, right? It has nothing to do with the analysis part. But what does a surname got to do with anything related to predictions? So we will remove surname also. And another thing which you want to remove is the customer ID. Person can have any customer ID. They can also leave. They can either stay, whatever, right? So I'm going to remove these three attributes from my dataset completely and will not be considered from now onwards. All right, so this is simple. Again, the DF, the data frame which I had, I will use the drop method. I will mention the attribute which I want to delete, and I will also mention the columns, that it is a column which is to be deleted, and in place basically means that within the same data set. So once I drop, my data set will be reset, and it has been done. Perfect. Now, if we see, let us see the shape of our DF data frame. Okay. All right, it's 11. So as I already talked about that, we have almost 14 attributes, 3 of which I have removed, so only 11 left. Now what I'm going to do is for each of the remaining attributes, I'm going to print the unique values that they have. So if you go above, so these 3 have been removed, taken care of, that's fine. If you see gender attribute, we have female, we have male, and I think that's the only 2 things, unique things you can see in this attribute. In a similar way, we will see what are the unique values in each of the attributes, right? So let's just do that. It's very simple. You will just apply a for loop on the entire data frame. And for each column, you will print the column name, and then you will print their unique value which the column contains. So let's just see. All right, so forget the credit score. That's certainly going to be a lot of unique values. Let's just forget that. I'll just go down. All right. So if you see for geography and for gender, you have like pretty scarce uh, categories that it contains, right? These are the unique values. So gender only has 2 type of values, female or male, and these are the values that will be repeated on and on. Similarly, geography only people from France, Spain, and Germany. This data set only contains, people from France, Spain, and Germany. Let's just assume that. Age is again going to have so many unique values, so let's just ignore that for once. And other things are numeric, so we don't have to worry much about it. So as I already told you that your values should be numeric in nature, right? So what I want to do here, if you see the gender attribute first, you can actually convert it into numeric values, right? You can uh, maybe assign female as 1 and male as 0, and let's just get this done with, right? Because again, your model will work perfect on numeric data. So I'm going to just do that. I'm going to replace all the female, I mean, all the female with 1 and all the male with 0. Right. So you can see 0 means 0. All right. So here 0 basically indicates that it is a male and 1 indicates it's a female. Simple, right? It's done as it says. Now let us see what is the data frame type. My data frame type should have been changed now. All right, specifically, I'll talk about gender. So if you see here, it's integer type, and in the previous data set, it was object type. So one of the things has been done. That's great, good news for you. Now, in the similar way, we will do something for our, um, before that, let's just see what are the unique values. It will show the same except for gender, it will show 0 and 1. So successfully, you have kind of changed the categorical value into numeric value, which is the one model will expect you to provide. Now, again, if you see geography, as I was talking about, now for geography, if you just think for one moment, can you use 0 and 1 only for geographies? No, you cannot use because you have 3 values, right? So for such cases where you have categories more than 2, you should essentially use something called one hot encoding. So what that process does is that it will create 3 separate columns for each of these categories. So it will be like for France, it will create one column. This geography column will be removed entirely. So let me go back to the data set. Here it is. So this entire geography attribute, this will be completely removed. Instead, we will now have 3 more attributes, namely geography France, geography Spain, and geography Germany, I think it is. Yeah, geography Germany. And for wherever France, whichever row France is there, it will put 1 in the France column. Similarly, if it is Spain, it will put 1 in that column. You'll be able to see that in a minute. Wait. Where is my column? Okay, this is my cell. Now let me just or this is just simple. This is a method which is provided. See, that's the beauty of Pandas library. You have everything in place. You just need to know which method to use, right? So you provide that this is my data set, this is my data frame, right, which we have been using throughout. And this is the column which I want to convert. And this is the newly created data frame, right? Now my data frame will be updated because I will be adding 3. This method will add 3 dummies. Let's just see. Okay, so if you see the columns in your newly created data frame, you have original attributes, right? So what are the new attributes that has been created? Okay, here are the 3 newly created attributes. Okay, these attributes were not there in your original data frame. So let's just quickly see how exactly my data frame looks like now. Okay, perfect. You can see that geography has been completely removed, and instead you have geography France, Germany, and Spain. So this is a very simple and very clever way of dealing with such kind of attributes which have categories more than 2. So in male or female, it was pretty straightforward. You replace female with 1 and male with 0. But for categories, uh, attributes with more than 2 categories, you need to use one hot encoding. It's pretty straightforward, right? Okay, so that's one part of it, right? Okay, now if you just look at the data set, I think my data set does not have any categorical data. That's a good news for starters, but bad news is my data is not normalized. Okay, so for attributes like gender, you see there is 0, 1, perfect, it's good. For has credit card, again, I think it's zeros and ones only. Perfect, fine, good. Is an active member will be zeros and ones, fine. But for attributes like estimated salary, balance, age, tenure, credit score, it's not normalized, right? The value is ranging from anywhere to anywhere. So in order to kind of bring everyone on the same page and on the same benchmark, I would normalize the data. So what the normalize, how will I normalize that? You'll see that in a minute. But what normalization will do, it will basically convert all these values in the range of 0 and 1, right? Again, how will that be beneficial? Well, the model will be able to learn more and more conveniently, more easily. That's all. We are kind of, changing our data to be used by our model. Model creation is not a very difficult part. It's the data which should be kind of processed to be able to use by the model. Anyways, moving on. So now I will just create an variable which will consist of all those attributes which I want to scale, which I want to normalize. So credit score, age, tenure, balance, these are the attributes which are not normalized. If you see, right? Credit score is not normalized. Age, tenure is again ranging from 1 to most probably to 8. I have just listed all the attributes which I want to normalize, and I have this is a list I have created and I have stored it in this variable. All right, so perfect. This call underscore scale contains this attributes which I want to scale. Now using another package now we will be using, which is called SK learn pre-processing. As the name suggests, it is used for doing the pre-processing. We will create a min max scaler. And what it will do, you will just see that. It will just transform your all these attributes in the range of zeros and ones. That is what is the meaning of scaling. We are scaling all these attributes to normalize them. All right, so we are done with that. Now let's just see how exactly our data frame looks now. Data frame which we have renamed, right? Okay, cool. Do you see any difference? I do. Okay, you can see your credit score has been, if you see before, it was 619 or something. It has now been changed to a value between 0 and 1. So that's pretty cool, right? Credit score has been changed. Age has also been normalized. Balance is also number of products. I think all my data should now be scaled. Perfect. So now your entire data set contains values only from only in the range of zeros and ones. That's a good news. Okay. Now let's just see, just for the sake of clarity, let's just see what are the unique values now. Okay, again, it's from 0 to 1. All the values you see here is in the range of zeros and ones. Cool. That's what I wanted. Gender is also in 0 and 1. This is age is also in the zeros and ones. Everything is now numeric value, and second, it has been scaled as well. So your pre-processing step, which I talked about in the slides, has been finished. Great. Now what you have to do. All right, so before I jump into the code, I would just like to show you a picture. All right, so if you see on your screen, before I could just write the next code, let's just understand what exactly this entire data set consists of and how we are going to divide it into what I talked about earlier, like the training set and the test set. So this is your entire data frame, data set, which has all these attributes, okay? What we are going to do, we are going to, again, 70:30 ratio, we are going to, 7:3 ratio, we are going to take 70% of the data set I will use for my training purposes, meaning I will give 70% of the data set to my model. The model will learn from the historic data. It will understand that, okay, if my credit score is this, gender is this, age is this, tenure is this, then I should tell that the person will exit. It will keep on learning from all the training set and make predictions accordingly and learn that, yeah, given these circumstances, I have to predict this. And the remaining 30% of your data set, as I have marked in yellow, will be used for testing. So what will happen during testing? You will provide this set, the test set. Now the model has to make the predictions. So if you see the label, what does this label mean over here? Label is the attribute which you want to predict. Features are the input attributes which you will provide to your model, and on the basis of those features, predictions will be made. And over here, the naming convention is training set and the test set. So generally, your input features which are used in the training set are labeled as X_train. If you want, you can name it any. It's just a matter of convention. And the one which you want to predict will be named as Y_train. Similarly, if it is a test data set, the input features are named as X_test, and the output label is named as Y_test. I hope this picture, kind of clarifies what exactly I meant by dividing your entire data set. Let's jump back to the portal. What I'm going to do here is, all right. So here, if you see, what I've done is in my X, so now X is the input attributes, okay? So input attribute does not contain exited. So as in this picture also, this entire attribute which I am talking about here, all this is the input attribute, right? It does not contain the attribute which you want to predict. So to do that, I have dropped my exited attribute, and in my Y, in Y, I have used the attribute which I want to predict. Simple. X contains the input attributes, Y contains the label which I want to predict. Pretty simple, right? All right. Now, what I am going to do is, again, so now again, I'm going to use sklearn in model selection. I will import train test results. This is a real lifesaver, okay? So imagine if you are asked to do all of this manually, dividing the set into train and test set, and that too into, X train and Y train and X test and Y test. So all this task has been made easier with the help of this train test fit method. So now what exactly it will do, if you observe here carefully, you provide the list of all the input features. You provide what is the attribute which you want to predict. And here, this is the interesting part. Here you mention what is the ratio in which you want to divide your data set. So if you write test_size, it basically means that you are asking for dividing your data set into 20% test set. And of course, it is understood that 80% will be used for training. You don't have to mention that explicitly. Random state 5 basically means that after every 5 attributes, it will choose randomly. That's okay. So it will not take continuous values, rather it will be random. And what this method will return, it will return 4 values as we talked about in this picture, right? We have 4 values: xtrain, ytrain, xtest, ytest. So again, same way it will return, and this is the order in which it will return. So you have to be very cautious that you write the correct order. It should be xtrain, then xtest, ytrain, and then ytest. All right, let me run that to see everything is working perfect or not. Yes, it is working. So now, you know what you just did. Basically, you have divided your entire data set into test and training set. Now imagine how conveniently we did that, right? That's the beauty of libraries. Okay, so now let's just see what exactly my train data set contains, right? This is what I was talking about. Let's see how many rows it has been allocated. Okay, so out of my 10,000, so original data set, my entire data set is consisting of 10,000 rows. Out of that, 8:2 ratio I have divided. So 80% of my set is now in the training data set. Now let's see what the same thing. Let's see. So according to the math, if you do the math, my test data set should have 2,000 rows. 2,000 rows. Simple, right? So it has been working as per our instructions. All right, so now comes the interesting part. We are going to create a model. So now this model again, mathematically speaking, it will take a quite time if you are going to create manually a model, and that's feasible. I'm not saying that's not feasible. That's completely feasible. But again, we have a very famous and very convenient library for that, which is known as TensorFlow. You can just go and Google about it. It's super easy to understand. Their documentation is perhaps the most easiest way to learn about TensorFlow. So okay, I just pasted a lot of code, but I'll just go through them one by one. I simply imported the library and created an object TF. Then from TensorFlow, I have used Keras library, another very popular way. Now here, what I'm doing is model is an object. Now what does this model will contain? It will contain your model, which you are going to use for predictions. Using Keras, I'm going to call my sequential method, which will now consist of layers, okay? You will have certain layers. Here you can see there are 3 layered neural network which we are creating. Okay, so if you see here why we have yeah. So here if you see we have written 12. So 12 I have written because the number of input attributes is 12. What does it mean? Let me go back here. So 12 I have written because these attributes are 12. If you count all of these attributes which will be given as an input to your model, these are 12. Label is something which is going to be predicted at a very later stage. But for now, your model will be given 12 attributes. So that's where I have written 12. And there's an activation function ReLU. So ReLU is a mathematical function which is responsible for uh, making certain decisions whether to activate a neuron or not. Okay. And at the end, I have used same way I have created a hidden layer here. Then I have created another final layer, which is also called the output layer. And here I have written only one. So why have I written one? Any idea? Like why have I written one here? Okay, so this is so because only one output is going to be there, right? It will be either 0 or 1. So what is the output going to mean? This exited attribute has only 2 values. It can either be 0 or it can be either 1. So that is the reason why I have mentioned 1 over here. But only one output is going to be there. Okay, after that, now once you have created your model, so your model is ready. Okay, you have mentioned all the instructions, you have mentioned all the features, specifications, you have given all the hyperparameters, everything is on the place. You just have to compile your model. So what does model compiling do? So if any one of you is aware of C++ programming, Java programming, you need to compile your code, right? You write your code, but it's useless unless you compile it, right? So in the same way, you have to compile your model using certain, again, some hyperparameters like optimizer, Adam. This is again a mathematical concepts which I might not be able to cover right now, but just know that for your model to learn, it has to be optimized. There are certain errors that the model is going to do. The loss. Now, what exactly loss means? So, in case if your model is making some errors, it should be penalized. You have to penalize it, then only it will understand. It's just like your parents, scolding you for doing some things, and then you are serious about it, right? So that way you will penalize the model for making mistakes. And how exactly, this is one of the ways. There are many other ways also, but we are going to use this. Why I have used binary cross entropy? Because I only have two outputs, only two outcomes. It will either be 0 or 1. Matrix is accuracy. We are going to measure the accuracy. And finally, once you compile your model, you have to fit your model using 100 epochs. Epochs is nothing but iterations, okay? Why have I mentioned 100? It's because I tested this model, and at 100, in about 100 epochs, my model was able to achieve good amount of accuracy. I remember I used even 120, the accuracy was not improving. So it's a good number of epochs. Let me run this and you will be able to see what happens. I have given my training set. I have given my the attribute which is to be predicted. Okay. So this entire, this X train and Y train is your training set completely. So what am I doing here? I'm basically training my model. Simple. I'm training my model on the basis of the data set. And what is that data set? The training data set. All right. So if you see here, it's still executing, but let's just start observing what's happening here. In the first epoch, it has, 8,000 rows, which I was talking about. Your training set consists of 8,000 rows. It's going to learn from those 8,000 rows. And on the basis of all those attributes, it has a loss of 0.54, an accuracy of 74% almost, which is not a very good accuracy, okay? Your loss should be as low as possible, which is pretty obvious, and your accuracy should be as high as possible. Let's move on. When it kept learning again and again and again, it improved. You can see it did improve from 72%. It is now 83% almost. That the loss is also decreasing, guys. You can see that, okay? It's 64th. I have 85.5% accuracy. Loss is at 35%. We are going good. Okay, let's move on. 93. Now we are almost done here. All right. In the last epoch, it has been able to achieve 86.2% accuracy with a loss of 33%, which is pretty much acceptable. If you want, you can also, try other parameters. You can even try, I'll tell you what are the things which you can, play around and do permutation and combinations with. You can change this activation function. Go online. There are so many activation functions. ReLU is the most basic one. That's why I've used it. You can even change this optimizer. There are so many other optimizers as well. SGD is also there. You can use that. You can try to change this loss, but pretty much this is the one you are going to end up with. Yeah, and then you can see if your accuracy improves. Let me know if you are able to achieve higher accuracy than 86%. Okay, so now, okay, what have I done? I have kind of trained my model on my training set. Now let's evaluate our model, whether it's like, as I talked about that, once you train your model, you have to test it on the test data set. So again, you are providing the test data set. You are telling that, hey, these are the inputs and this is the expected outcome. So let's see how much. Okay, so our model, has trained on model has made the predictions on our test data set, and it is 85.5% accurate. Pretty good. Now, what am I going to do is make certain predictions. It's time for predictions now. Okay, before that, let me just tell you something. So this is a nice visualization which I have created for you to understand what exactly we have done so far. I understand it can be overwhelming a lot to see the screen. So first of all, we had the entire data set to us. We did some pre-processing. We made so many changes to our data set. If you remember, we removed certain attributes. We, changed the from object type to we changed to integer type, and so many things we did. Then we divided the data set, the pre-processed data set, in two parts: training data set and test data set. Using the training data set, you created an artificial neural network and you fed this training data set to your artificial neural network. Now that artificial neural network has been trained, right? It knows what to predict and how to predict. It knows, it has learned. Now there is a trained artificial neural network model. Now to that already trained ANN model, you fed the test data set, which you had earlier divided. And now for this test data set, this model will predict whether the value should be given 0 or 1, meaning the person has exited or not. Simple. I hope that was clear. Okay, let's get back to predictions. So now my model has been trained. My model has been evaluated on my test set. Let's make some predictions. So I'm going to, so using the predict function, it will expect a data set. Now this data set will only consist of X test. What is this X test? This is the 20% of the data set, right? Now my model will make certain predictions. Okay, my model is going to make predictions and I'm printing that. So these are the predictions. Now, if you understand, it's pretty difficult to get whether it is 0 or 1, because what we are expecting, we are only expecting zeros and ones, right? We just want to know whether the person has exited or not, or will exit or not. So let's convert this data into zeros and one first before anything else. So this is my y underscore. Okay, so I have created a new variable, and for values which are greater than 0.5, for example, okay, there is no value over here, which is, so values which are greater than 0.5, I will say that it is 1. The person will leave. For the values which are less than 0, for example, you see 0.030, this is less than 0.5, I'll simply append 0. And I have done this for the uh, entire list which I have predicted, and I'm printing only the first 10. Sorry, the last 10. Okay, now my data has been, converted into zeros and one, and it looks pretty neat and clean. Okay. So this is the value, these are the values which our model has predicted as per the training which has been provided to it. Now for the same test set, we know what exactly is the value to expect, right? Because we have divided the test set, we already have the values in our hand. So let us, just see what exactly is the expected value. Okay, so if you see, this is the value which our model predicted, and this is the value which it already has. So my model for the first 5, 6, yeah, for the first 5, 6 um, input values, it has predicted correctly that the person will not leave, which is 0. But for one, I think for this one, it has made wrong predictions, right? For the third last, yes, it made the wrong prediction. See, again, accuracy of our model is only 85%, then certainly it is going to make errors. And now there is another, there's a good way to understand your model which has been trained, which is known as the confusion matrix. It's a very great way actually. We'll just see that this is the way you use the sklearn.matrix. You import the confusion matrix. There is a classification report you create. Here, let's see. So our output, the label has only two values, 0 and 1. So for 0, for the class 0, meaning that the person has left, it was able to predict the output as 0 88% of the time, which is correctly. And again for the class 2, which is 1, again it was able to predict that the class is 1 71% of it. So you do see that, yeah, for class 1 the accuracy is a bit low. And overall accuracy is 85%, right? So F1 score is again related to precision and recall. This is another, it's a next level, which I won't talk about much here, but it's related to precision and recall. It is like it is dependent on precision and recall. Okay, so that's a great way to understand your model, the predictions made by your model. Okay. All right, so here what am I doing? I'm just trying to see what exactly my xtrain contains. So this is what my xtrain looks like. So what xtrain is the data set on which I have trained my model. So my model already knows that for these values, for credit score 0.8, for gender 1, for age this, I have to predict something, right? And what is that it has to predict? Let's see that. Y train head. It has to predict 0. So what am I showing here is that for these input values, your model has been trained to predict a value of 0, meaning that if these are the values, I have to say that no, the person will not leave. So let's do that. Okay, let's do that for our model. That for already given value, will our model be able to predict 0 or not? Let's do that. I have given exactly same value, guys, which you see over here. Exactly same values. Let's hope that our model is able to recall that it should not predict 1. It has to predict 0. Okay, so you see it is actually 0. It has not been normalized because for any value which is less than 0.5, we are going to say that it's 0. So you see here we have been able to predict, our model has been able to predict successfully that yes, this person is not going to leave. In a similar way, you can just play around. You can give some other input value, unknown input values. This is essentially a known value. You can give unknown values, and your model will be able to predict 85% of the times. Okay, so that's the condition here. So I think I have like covered everything which I wanted to. So we just to recall what we have done. We started by a very bad data set, which was which contained a lot of unnecessary information precisely, and we made some changes to it. We created our own data set. Let me go back to this. Okay. Then we, trained our model, and we got a trained artificial neural network model, which is now smart. It knows what to predict. And then we provided it the test data set and made certain predictions. And it's not just the test data set that we can provide. We can provide any unknown values, right? Which the model has not previously seen. So yeah, I will now just give me a moment. My screen just froze. Just a second. Back. Mm. Finally. Out, I think screen is not visible. I hope the screen will be visible in just a couple of minutes now. All right, anyways, I'll just continue. So that's all I had for the demo. I hope it was like, useful to every one of you. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I know you can email me. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. You can text me there, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Till the time you can try out these things on your own, and if you are stuck somewhere, I would be more than happy to help you out. And you can share the knowledge on digital media as well. So yeah, that's what we talked about. We talked about data science and its various components, approach towards the data science project, Azure for students. Then we also did cover the demo for predicting bank customer churn using Azure machine learning and Python. So that's all I had for today. Thank you so much, everyone, and I really appreciate you joining this session. Now, I would like to request you all to just turn on your camera and we can have a quick um, picture together. Familiar faces, nice. I don't know how. Okay, together now. All right, say cheese. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day. Bye bye.